Hi everybody, it's been a while. Been sorting a few things out in the private life, but everything's back on track. New job, kids to raise, the usual story. but I'm back with some new videos now. So basically, what's going on here? We've got a new article. This one is actually in the Guardian, and last month they found this Roman mausoleum in London. And the whole article just talks about the Romans and how it's all Roman. And not, I don't think this article even makes one reference to the British or the Britons. But I thought let's have a look at this anyway, because as we know London was a major place back in the British period where there was Roman influence, yeah, where we were dealing with the Roman Empire and the wider Roman Empire. And obviously, what we would have had here, we would have had a lot of prominent British people at different levels of society. So you'd have had chieftains, warriors, people within the religious circles, obviously living in the area we know as London. And what this is talking about is they found this mausoleum. So obviously it becomes Roman. So when they say Roman mausoleum, I'm automatically thinking there must be some Roman person in there. So what do I mean by Roman? I'm talking someone that identifies as a Roman citizen that is here in Britain but doesn't identify as a British person. All right. So that's the way I'm kind of thinking of it. Now you could argue, you could say, well, some Britons became Roman citizens, so surely that would be. But I always say what the correct terminology should be. It should be Britain within the period of the Roman Empire. Right. That's how these articles should be, because by doing that, they're recognising Britain and they're recognising British history. But they don't do that. It's all about Roman. So if you can imagine, you don't know anything about British history, you're quite ignorant about British history, uh, you followed the mainstream and it's all been suppressed. You kind of think to yourself, well, there were these people that came over sometime in the first millennium, which they teach in the mainstream. They do teach that in the mainstream, but they won't attribute it to Brutus or anything like this. And they'll say they came over in the first millennium BC. They were called the Celts because that's the romantic now name of these people, the Celts. And then the Romans came along, and you had the Romans in Britain and no one else. These Celts suddenly went away, disappeared. Then the Romans left Britain. Then the people that remained, yeah, they now call them, they don't call them Celts anymore. They call them Romano-British, right? Yeah, okay. Romano-British. And at that point, yeah, they were obviously so stupid because the Romans left. They degenerated and went back into kind of, living in wood huts and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, that's how they like to portray British history, and that the Britons then were so stupid and so idiotic that they couldn't do anything without the help of outside people, right, coming in and helping them out. That is how mainstream likes to portray the history of the Britons. Obviously, we know different. We know that the Britons obviously have the wider connections to the Mediterranean and the Eastern Mediterranean. We know the migrations that happened around the time of the mid first century millennium. Sorry, first mid first millennium BC. We know the connections to the great cultures, the Austrian and the other cultures of the Mediterranean. And we know the fact that the Britons were a sophisticated society and were trading long before, you know, they were trading, and they were very sophisticated people with a written language, right? We know this, okay? Then we know that the Romans came along, and we know then that there was a period of influence in Britain that the Romans had. And basically what that was that the Romans came along, there would have been some initial argy-bargy at the start of it, initial bit of fighting, but most of the time it would have been negotiation. And what the Romans would have been doing is they would have been going to the various tribes around Britain. Look, let's do good business, and we're going to give you information, we're going to give you knowledge, we're going to give you some additional knowledge that you've already got, and you can give us some knowledge yourselves. Yeah, and there would have been this going along. Then you would have had a period where, yes, there would have been British tribes, um, you know, upgrading their towns. Some could say along the Roman engineering lines, but the Britons would have been maintaining this and upgrading this, and obviously they would have then been dealing with the various interactions with the Roman Empire, right? The history that they like to portray in the mainstream is that Britain was suppressed and that we had all these legionary fortresses. Most of those, by the way, and this is what they don't tell you, were originally set up, yeah, during the argy-bargy days, but then gradually went away once the, you know, those negotiations happened with the local chieftains. So these great legionary forts weren't populated by the legions, right, for very long, and they were then mainly populated by Britons. So this is kind of one of the things that they don't really tell you in the mainstream. And you have this opinion that these legions were based in Britain, that they suppressed the local and the auxiliary units, they suppressed the local Britons. The Britons obviously were living out in their mud huts in the wild because that's what Britons do. They're all stupid, don't have a written language and can't communicate. And that everything is attributed to the Romans. So this is another classic example. So we've got this lovely mausoleum that they found. And if we look at this video, I haven't got it. Let's see if I can get the video back up. Here we go. So here we go. Lovely music. Give the person credit, whoever did this. Recreated this. As you can see, you've got this this here, which is where obviously the body would lie in the mausoleum. And as you can say, I would say I attribute this to a Great Britain. So this would have been a, someone high up in the hierarchy of British society, having such a lovely grave such as this. But again, they would never attribute to that. So if we go through here, it's constantly riddled with Roman this, Roman that. That it's part of the Roman history, and therefore Britain. Here we are. The area contained in the museum contained more than 80 Roman burials, so only Romans are buried there. Britons would never be buried there, according to this. And there were coins. Now, somebody may argue with me and go, haha, don't you understand that they had Roman coins with quite clearly Roman emperors on there, so therefore it's Roman. Now, I ain't going to deny that in the wider Roman Empire of commerce, right, that Britain, that you would have had coins minted and then Britons would have been using the coins for trade. Very simple, that's what they would have been doing. And obviously you would have had people trading from London, from other parts of the empire, and they would have been using coins back and forward to trade. That doesn't necessarily mean you had what we call classical Romans there, right? So again, it's very misleading. It's really quite difficult. It's like I said, the concept of Roman Britons, again, I don't like that. It's Britons within the period of the Roman Empire. That's how it should be, and that's how it should end, really. And so it would be great if these articles could just attribute this to Britons and say, we found a British tomb in the period of the Roman Empire. And there were, if I was writing this article, I would say, it's a British tomb in the period of the Roman Empire, could be attributed to a highborn Briton. The architecture is in a line with the period of the time. That's really important, which was the period of the Roman Empire, 2nd, 3rd, 4th century. But I would have always attributed it back to the Britons. And again, most intact ever discovered in Britain. Yeah, again, it's wrong. It should be most intact British mausoleum to be discovered in Britain during the period of the Roman Empire. That's how that sentence should really be written. Because like I said, I'm not here to take away what the Romans gave the Britons. I'm not, I fully accept what the Romans gave the Britons. But mainstream media would have you believe that it's, or mainstream archaeology, sorry, would have you believe that the Romans suppressed the Britons, and that was never the case. The Britons, who were sophisticated people, were integrating through commerce with the Romans. That's what it's all about. Anyway, there's me having a rant. I will be bringing out more videos soon, and do stick with this channel. And I've got several more videos that I'll be releasing in the next couple of weeks. Okay, thank you very much.